This is really an interesting series for a college, or frankly for any organization to hold. It is a self-critical look at what we do and how we do it. And most industries and most organizations choose not to do that. They choose to believe that they're doing something important and just try to get better, but don't critically analyze what that organization is really producing. And are they meeting the objectives of the customer? And here we have a deeply introspective look, and I think it comes from our real belief that with all the criticism and all the calls for change in higher education, it's still the single most important factor in the advancement of a society. If you look at the statistics, now I admit, I should have a disclaimer here. I am a fanatic. So you're smart. You'll figure out whether I'm going over the top or not. And I'll try to support it with data, but I am a fanatic. I believe that higher education is the single greatest component for advancing a society. And I think there's some numbers that prove it out. If you get a bachelor's degree, you will earn 70% more than someone without a bachelor's degree over a lifetime. That is a significant difference in the creation of value in a society. If you look at the single most important variable in predicting the income and advancement of a child, you look at the education of their parents and if they also had a bachelor's degree. If you combine those. And I think in a lot of ways, higher education is really the enabler of the American dream, which is to do better than the society, than your parents did. You know, I'm fond of saying if it takes a village, then frankly an educated villager will contribute more on average than someone who is not educated. It seems self-evident to me. But the interesting tumult of this time is that a majority of people, the majority of adults, 18 years old and older, believe that higher education is not providing value. Certainly not enough value based on the cost. If we ignore that, it's at the peril not only of this institution of higher education, but I think of society. So we need to pay attention. And a series like this, which is deeply analytical and deeply critical, motivates change. I think that Philadelphia University is one of those change agents. We recognized it 5 years ago in our strategic plan when we said we have to have an explicit value proposition for students. You come here, you work hard, you be empowered to be a leader in your profession. That's pretty explicit. And I think most places just aren't doing that. And I think the series of people that we've had here are, frankly, they're also just really inspiring. What a pleasure to have Robin here today and Benny, and you know, God bless, you guys are, I mean, world-class thinkers and self-critical of higher education in general. I was really impressed with Roger Martin of the Rotman School of Management, who said there's two things that we have to do. The first is we have to have a lack of self-satisfaction. It's a really interesting sort of turn of phrase. Look at yourself critically and don't be satisfied with where you are. And by the way, the data will serve you well. You shouldn't be self-satisfied. The second thing is look at a bottoms-up approach to changing what you're doing. I'm proud that Philadelphia University takes exactly that approach. We have changed the curriculum, the infrastructure, the organization, the value proposition, the delivery systems, and we're not satisfied. We don't think we're doing enough. We want to go faster. We want to do more. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. I'm more proud of our attitude because I think the pace of change is going to hasten. And I don't think it's about technology. I think technology is pulling us in a lot of directions, and we better be on top of that. But I think it's about creativity and the use of resources by creative people that seek to make a better world. Technology is one of those, and it's a tremendous aid in what we're trying to accomplish. But it is much more than that. The human interaction with technology and the creativity of those people will make the difference, not the technology in itself. And it is our very explicit goal, and we're seeing it more and more, that our graduates go out and not only start businesses like Robin did, but infuse innovation in existing businesses. We waste a lot of time and ability in existing businesses, and we let them wither and die, and I don't think there's a good reason for that. Our students are making a difference in that. I think Robin exemplifies that so well. When I saw she was coming, I said, geez, I think I know her. And then I walked in today, and I think we met maybe 10 years ago up in the Boston, maybe even longer than that, up in the Boston area, where she was had just launched. She was just starting to get famous. She wasn't quite famous, I think, yet. And we were able to get her at Babson. Now that she's famous, she's come to a much better school when she's going to be speaking here. Randy, would you come up and introduce Ms. Chase for us?
Absolutely. Hello. It's an absolute pleasure to introduce Robin. We saw Robin speak, I don't know, 2-3 years ago at Business Innovation Factory. She was amazing, and I encourage you all to see. She'll give her presentation today. I encourage you to look at her BIF presentation, it's online. I encourage you to look at her TED presentation, it's online. She has a very, very important message for us, I think, in higher ed today. But before I talk a little bit about that, just a bit about her background. Self-evident. She's CEO of Zipcar. Zipcar just revolutionized the entire transportation sector. We have zip cars, everybody has zip cars. Everywhere you go, there are zip cars, and it really has changed the way people think about what a car is, what they need in order to get from one place to another, and has been a tremendous boom, I think, for the environment as well. She's also CEO of GoLoco, and is currently CEO and founder of the Paris-based Buzzcar, and she'll talk a little bit about Buzzcar today. It's also, I think, very important that given her work on the transportation sector, she's also on the board of the World Resources Institute. She is on the advisory board for the U.S. Secretary of Commerce on innovation and entrepreneurship. The same for the U.S. Department of Transportation's Intelligent Transportation System Program Advisory Committee. So she's taken all of this knowledge that she's learned in the business sector, and she's bringing it back and giving it to us in really profound, interesting ways through government and other kinds of nonprofits that are trying to change the world as well. Now, why is Robin here? She is an incredibly compelling person, and her message is very important. But what we are trying to do, and what Steve was talking about, is to change the world of higher education. And Robin has an important message, and I'm not going to steal your message here, but her message is about peer networks, the way that people work together virtually and, frankly, face-to-face, but primarily in this case virtually. And she's taken this idea of peer networks, and she's taken the idea of institutions and the platforms they create that facilitate those networks, and has created a really, really thoughtful idea, concept that she calls Peers Incorporated. And my hope this afternoon in the community workshops that we have is that this idea of peer networks, meaning students and faculty, they're already happening, everybody's already communicating through peer networks, and the university, being the institution, that we can begin to think how to bring those two pieces together in really new, innovative ways, and maybe begin to think about what a university would look like if we were to pursue more a peers incorporated model. I've already spoken too much. Without further ado, thank you so much, Robin. It's great to have you here.
It is my pleasure to be here, and I'm excited. So you'll think in the beginning, what the heck is she talking about? And by the time we get to the end, it'll all make sense. So I wrote part of this on the plane last night, twisting what I had done before. So remember free enterprise before the Industrial Revolution, and of course, none of us were around the pre-Industrial Revolution, and had I not been sitting in airports without Wi-Fi, I would have found some nice picture of some agrarian society, or I want to think of all the different kinds of craftsmen, all different types of laborers. So what was it before? It was a bunch of small enterprises. almost every man for himself, or within families they would have businesses, but mostly there was not large organized businesses. And small businesses, what are they good at? Making lots of small investments, delivery of small scale services, single specific expertise. If we think of all those craftsmen and those tradesmen, you had the thing that you were really good at, and that's what you did. Short-term sporadic efforts. As I work 120-hour weeks, I keep thinking, darn, I would like to be kicking back. We know they weren't kicking back, but they would be doing things that you would make your shoes, and then you would sit around and make another pair of shoes, but it was very specific, focused effort. And importantly, customized, social, specialized, and local. So these efforts were really very specific and unique things that people did. And so I want to talk about a tale of industrialization. And I actually want to say, then I'm going to move to post-industrialization. So a tale of industrialization. Last night, this worked for me. When you go to a new place that you don't live, typically you go find a friend. And last night when I was stuck in the Washington, D.C. airport and there were no hotels to be booked, I called up a friend. And I was very lucky. This isn't my friend's room, but you would be staying if you went to a new place, you would stay at someone's house, a friend's house. And you would maybe get a great single bed like this. Or you could be extra lucky and have a nice double bed, which is what I had last night. I had the deluxe guest bedroom suite. You could be unlucky, however, and end up like this. You know, your mom says, kicks out the teenager, and that would be where you would staying. And which last night in DC, I would have slept any place as long as it wasn't in the lounge at the airport. So because of how we used to have to stay, and still do stay at people's houses, that's why hotels were invented. Hotels are, in fact, shared beds. And we can think about hotels have to get a nice return on investment. They have to work, they think of a 7-day week, and they have to make sure that that 7-day week pays for that hotel room. And as I wrote this tonight, I want to say, thank God for industrialization. I can stay in a hotel, and it's nice and consistent. I know exactly what I'm getting. I have my nice big room. Isn't it great? So if we think about hotels, I do think of it as bed sharing. And I used to tease my staff at Zipcar that they want to call Zipcar car sharing. And I would say, don't call it car sharing. No one knows what car sharing is. And imagine if we called hotels bed sharing. Like you're not really that interested in staying in them if you think you have to share it. But so hotels are effectively bed sharing. So I went online and I did some research. I said, okay, let me look and see what are the largest hotels in the world. The largest so industrialization. So what do these big hotel chains do? And what is great about big industrial things is they can do really large investments. And you can have very specific, you can have so many different kinds of expertise work on this. So I'm not just my craftsman self who knows one thing. Big companies, they have all sorts of aggregated kinds of expertise. Multi-year efforts. So to build that hotel took a really long time. We had to work at it. And standards and standardization, that's really actually very important because when I go to a hotel, I know exactly what to expect, which is I pay $15 for Wi-Fi and drives me crazy. But so they have standards and these areas of expertise. I'm going to move back so it's easier for me to use my slide. They're global. And all of this standardization and this type of quality of delivery is bound up in a brand promise. And so when you go to Hilton hotels, you know what to expect. When you go to a Best Western, you know what to expect. And that's what industrialization has done for us. So here are the largest hotel chains, and the Intercontinental Hotel Group, I think, is the largest. It's 60 years old, has 650,000 rooms in 4,400 hotels in 100 countries. And you can see these other ones, Hilton, 93 years old. I mean, they've been working at it for a really long time. And you can imagine when they built their hotel rooms, sometimes you guess wrong. So you build a hotel in a place and no one wants to come. And so you squandered all that money. Just think of the level of effort to where should I site it? Forget this building that was built in 20 months. Every other building in the world takes a really long time. How do I have to finance it, plan it, build it, then maintain it, then it can succeed or fail. So it's this huge effort to get to be these big hotels. But the largest hotel chain, bed sharing in the world, is in fact Airbnb. And so you guys know Airbnb, where I put my own bedroom or my own house onto the internet through Airbnb. And so Airbnb is now, I think, 5 years old, 650,000 rooms. They have as many rooms as the largest hotel chains in the world in 200 countries. I mean, that is really remarkable. How in heck can they do that? And in fact, there's couch surfing, which is even larger, but there's no money changing hands. But so they're 8 or 9 years old, 1.5 million rooms. So this slide for me is really, it's like an astounding thought. Like, how in heck does that happen? How do they do that? And that's when I look at this. Here's Airbnb's growth, and I have to keep changing out this slide because it keeps growing so incredibly quickly. So this slide now is a year old. So really remarkable, their growth. And this pace of growth is the thing that I want you guys to also burn into your memory. So what's going on here? We know that large organizations are good at these kinds of things, and they find it really expensive to do all the things that, if you think about Airbnb, has. It's really expensive to do localized, customized, specialized things because that requires all this one-of stuff. And that's where we begin to see there's this really interesting balance that individuals and peers and small companies are good at some things, and big industrialized companies are good at other things. And I put this together and I think of it as peers incorporated. Each side, there's this partnership going on, and each side is doing what it does best. And there's some value sharing. And they have to share the value, so if the company tries to take too much with Airbnb, people aren't going to put their houses on. And if the people who are putting their houses on, they need Airbnb to make it really simple and easy. The platform has to be really beautiful and straightforward for them to go in. So Airbnb is not like 650,000 unique bed and breakfasts, because it has this brand promise that comes with a standardized contract, a standardized insurance program, a standardized interface, yet the places that I can stay at are really phenomenal. So one thing that I want to point out is under the peers side, of course I can get it on my social networks because of course it's me and my social networks. I'm happy to talk to my friends. But innovation is what's really key here, is that innovation comes from this kind of collaborative mix. If the company, no matter how big the company is, and someone was telling me who said this famous quote and I've forgotten, but we know that there's more smart people outside than there are inside. So if we have a large hotel chain, I mean, they're going to have 10 guys thinking about innovation, whereas Airbnb has 650,000 people iterating on the hotel model. And so you can get this huge amount of innovation that's coming on this. So if we look at these, for me, what I've described to you is now my new hammer and everything looks like a nail. And so these companies that we've talked about forever and ever, what I see is these are peers incorporated companies. And why did they grow so fast? Precisely because it's this model that I'm telling you, that the big company does what it's good at, and it lets the individuals do all the stuff that it's good at. So Google, it's really my links and searches that makes Google fabulous. Yeah, they have their algorithm out there, but if we didn't participate, they would be nothing. Same thing with Facebook. You know, it's my friends and my gossip. YouTube, my videos. And these other ones. And building these platforms, I think of them as platforms for participation, are so non-trivial. If we look at YouTube, you can imagine there was Google Video versus two guys who had an idea. Why in heck would Google Video not win and why did YouTube succeed? Like, it's the most implausible thing. And it's because building these platforms, you have to get it so that you make it as simple as possible for the participants. So what YouTube did was it enabled uploading of various kinds of form factors much more simply than Google Video did, which is why YouTube succeeded. And I also think that they probably had the share button more obvious into the red, you know, a little bit better. So if we look at this, when I look at this structure, there are these things that fall out. When you have the big company and it makes this platform, and actually these should be switched, this was me on the plane, if you build a platform, because you have a platform, you mandatorily have speedy growth. That's what a platform delivers, is it makes it so simple and easy for other people to participate. It's not like those Airbnb guys are not having to collaborate, they're not having to cooperate, they're not having to work together at all. It's kind of like parallel, all flunk onto the platform. And that's why you get this incredibly speedy growth. And because the company is doing all these things, you can have amazing economies of scale. There's an example that I just learned in India of this combination that I love called G-Auto. And do you guys know that India auto rickshaws? So in a huge city that's I'm forgetting the name of, this company started, and they give life insurance to the auto rickshaw drivers. They give them low discounted diesel fuel rates because they are a bulk buyer, so they give them the discounted fuel rates. They have service contracts that are standards of service, and so they deliver a brand on it. And so all these auto rickshaw drivers, they also provide low-cost leases on clean auto rickshaws. So the incorporated side, G Auto, has managed to provide this really great platform doing all these things that is impossible for the individual rickshaw drivers to do, to negotiate a good health plan and to negotiate big discounts. And together, now they have a couple thousand already of auto rickshaw drivers that have joined this company. And so that's another kind of peers incorporated. And so just going back, so the speed of growth. And so here are some examples of these kinds of companies. Carpooling.com is the largest car ride-sharing company in the world. And they move 1 million people every month. And it's as if it's 2,500 high-speed rail trains that they move, that number of people. I mean, it's this phenomenal thing. And they didn't have to buy a single train car, and they didn't have to lay any track. It's really this peers incorporated model. It's every individual putting their own idle excess capacity onto their platform where other people can find it. And back to the same concept, no individual can go out and, we used to have ride boards with little, thumbtack and a piece of paper, but that is way less convenient. And so it required the guys at carpooling.com to continue to iterate and make their model better and better, their technology. And you can see they have this great growth going on. Fiverr, do you guys know Fiverr? It's what will you do for $5? I met these guys when they launched, and 3 weeks after they launched, they already had 65,000 users. But now, after 2.5 years, they have 800,000 gigs, which is called what will you do for $5? And so again, it's a platform, and it's all of these people out there putting their stuff on. And for an amusing rainy day event, go look and see what you can get for $5. I gave some people some great birthday cards for $5 that were definitely worth it. So it's not just concrete and simple stuff. Topcoder is the largest community for software design and development. They have over 400,000 engineers that are working worldwide. And their contracts are huge. They do work for Google and for Facebook and these really big guys. And when I talked with their CEO, he believes that this model is absolutely the future of the world. This is where all employment is going to go, is this people joining up and working underneath these platforms. And then Etsy, where I'm speaking Sunday, Etsy is, as you guys know, it's a marketplace of things that I either made or curated myself. And you can see, I think this year, 2012, I have to go ask him, I think they did $650 million worth of sales. And again, the pace of growth is phenomenal once you get the platform. And the platform is constantly iterated and improved. But again, it's something that the company couldn't do. They're also in about 200 countries. So, as you know, I did Zipcar, and I feel like Buzzcar is to Zipcar in this peers incorporated model. So Zipcar owned and operated its own cars. And when I was doing it, and today it's still great, but we'll only put cars where you can get a return on investment. And so we'll never put cars in dense rural areas. People would always ask me, why don't you have a Zipcar underneath my building or in my neighborhood or in my city or at my university? And we wouldn't put it there because we couldn't be guaranteed to have a good return on investment. So with Buzzcar in France, we let people can rent out their own car to their friends and neighbors. And this model has been dramatically hard to do. It took me I've been working for 4.5 years to get insurance in the United States. And I still have been unsuccessful. And it took me a year to get it in Europe, in France, and I want to say it's still not quite what it should be. So it's a really, really hard thing to do. And that's something that no individual could ever do. If you want to rent out your own car and someone gets in a car accident, well then your insurance is now gone up for the next 5 years. So we had to do this. And so one of the things we talked about is with the Peers Incorporated is I can get this amazing, amazing diversity of offering. And so here are some of my guys. These are owners and their cars. And you can see that they're all different kinds of people and different kinds of cars. And these are photos they've sent in. and different price points, different coolness factors. Did you get those two back to back? Cool, uncool, all these kinds of people. And today, after a year and 3/4, we have 2,000 cars that are put into the system and 14,000 people who have signed up to be members. And Zipcar didn't get to that point for like 8 years, maybe. It's not exactly the same, but what is really exciting to me is when I see car rentals happen in places where there was no way in hell that you would find a traditional, I love saying traditional car sharing provider. And so it really has those characteristics that I had hoped for. And in terms of service, what's really remarkable with these guys is that we had one rental, these are just stories, one rental when a person needed 2 baby seats, and so he rented a car that had 2 car seats. And another friend of mine, a colleague of mine, went and rented a car to go to an island off the south of France, off the coast of France. And when she picked up the car and the owner learned where she was going, the car owner said, oh, you know, okay, on this side, there's this road around here is a really beautiful cliffs, and on this side is where all the beaches are, and this is my favorite beach, and this is the best beach, and this is my favorite fish restaurant. And so you're not going to get that from Hertz or Avis, right? You're not going to get that kind of local, nice detail. But this is exactly what the Peers Incorporated provides. And so another interesting and negative part around peer production is that when we produce, we as individuals, we produce on the spectrum. Let me just see what my next slide is. When you do industrialized production, the whole point of it is standardization. And so they pick one specific value price point, and that's what they're going to deliver time after time. And so that is great. And that means I'm going to get none of that yucky stuff because you get just that. But it also means that I don't get any of the stuff that's better than that price value point, which is what we see with Airbnb when you go online and you look and drool at their photos, is that you can see that they're offering this amazing stuff at the top end. And ratings and commentaries is how peer production gets rid of the junky stuff at the bottom. So when we do peer production, and I'd say it's eBay who is one of the first Peers Incorporated companies. They're the guys who invented ratings and commentaries because they figured it out first, right? They understood right away. And then you think of YouTube, there's great movies and there's really bad ones. There is this website that I was told about and I have yet to find it, which is you can cycle through YouTube videos that have never been seen, i.e. not even the person who uploaded it bothered to watch it. And to this upside, I say, wow, and I want to say, wow, when I think about YouTube, every once in a while you come across a video that you just think, oh my gosh, that is so unbelievably creative. Like, who would have thought of that? How incredibly remarkable. And why is that? Because there are millions and millions of people uploading videos, which is way more than you're going to find in a movie studio or an ad agency. Like, this is what delivers this amazing upside. And I think as we see more and more Peers Incorporated companies going, we'll be moving that standard of quality that industrialized offerings have. It'll have to be shifting more higher quality because now we'll be seeing how to deliver higher quality. What are more remarkable innovations? So I think that this business model also will be delivering amazing innovation and upping our game. And so this I drew yesterday with the miracle of technology. So I wrote it, took a photograph, put it in. And when I think about these platforms, there's 2 types of things going on here. So if we think about YouTube, Airbnb, and Buzzcar, what those companies do is all these little tiny pieces of excess capacity, people's own cars, their extra housing, whatever, extra skill and intelligence, and they're kitting all that little tiny piece of junk, and through the platform, they're organizing it in a way that now people can get at in a way that makes sense. So it's organized and discoverable, and there are some standards that I want to have. There's standards of how to get it in and get it out. And so this platform does that function. On the other hand, there's platforms like Zipcar and Open Data that take a big thing that was sold only in big bytes and only available in big bytes, and they make it available in little tiny pieces. And so Zipcar, if you think of buying cars before you either bought it, you owned it, or you didn't own it, or you rented it for 24 hours in 24-hour lumps. We said, no, you can now take it in these little hourly pieces. And same thing with open data. You know, we bought it for this one big thing. It used to sit in a drawer, but we're going to make it available and make it easy for you guys to get and use whatever little value pieces you can pull out of it. And so what I think is really happening here is that this Peers Incorporated model is liberating excess capacity. And excess capacity is something that's very dear to me because there's so much of it around. And the trick is how to unlock this excess capacity. And I think the Peers Incorporated model is what delivers it. And so it could be through these two different kinds of mechanisms, organizing lots of small things or enabling big things to be available in little small pieces. So just to reiterate, on the peers side, and this stuff on the bottom underneath the arrows is what I feel like it's fundamentally what has to happen when you engage with these groups. So if we have lots of people doing stuff, we have to get diversity. That's just what happens. When you have lots of people, it has to be diverse. When we have diversity, we're going to end up with this innovation. That's just what happens. And we also end up with really fabulous resilience because nothing is too big to fail. They are not too big to fail. You have all of these little different things going on. And so something will always pick up. When I think of, so with the Airbnb or the internet is this model, right? And I already talked about the other side. And I think, so together they unlock the value. And each one requires the other to deliver. You can't have one side without the other side. So I've been having arguments with my daughter around Facebook. And she was saying, oh, Mom, Facebook is just great. You can't talk about it like this because we are doing value sharing. Well, so when Facebook went public, it sold for $100 per person who had signed up for Facebook. And the amount of money that was being made out of each person on Facebook was $3.25. So the monetization that Facebook was getting was $3.25, yet the market gave them a price of $100, and of course it's been plummeting. But it's still a huge gap between what they're getting out of people and what they're supposed to be getting out, which is why we're feeling more and more pressure, and they're doing more and more things that we're not going to like. So we'll see if Facebook can maintain the balance, but if they start trying to extract more value than the peers want to give, the peers will start going elsewhere, right? So it really has to be this maintained balance. I think, of course, that transportation is the center of the universe. And just to remind you guys, since there's some students here, one of the reasons that you love your college education is because your friends and your work and your leisure are all in the same spot without getting in a car. And so when you go find your future jobs, remember that's the sweet spot, when you can get to every place without getting in a car. But what I'm trying to put on here is the world's biggest problems. And I think that we can get at and address these world's biggest problems. And for me, this Peers Incorporated model is honestly my only moment of optimism, because actually I'm incredibly pessimistic about the future, because there's so many huge, huge, huge problems, and we have to solve them in so little time. And this Peers Incorporated model is delivering this speed and the scale once you get the platform right. Like, these things can turn really, really fast. As I showed you with Airbnb, the uptake was unbelievable. The growth of YouTube, the growth of Facebook. I mean, all of these things are these platforms that it's many hands make light work. And I also like this model because we're saying that there's a place in our future for every participant. Individuals have a really important part to play, and companies have a very important part to play. And what I'm laughing about the companies is we're thinking of them as big monoliths, but all of these Peers Incorporated companies I'm talking about are startups that became big companies, right? They were little tiny nothings, and now they are the major, most big companies in our world. So around what you guys are doing, as I've been watching, when I think about Philadelphia University, and I'm really impressed that you guys are taking this on, the university would be the platform, and the university, and I think, let me give you some examples of platforms that are not technology, and of course in transportation. So in Bogota, Colombia, If we think of excess capacity, I always want you to start with excess capacity. So thinking about this, always look to where there's excess capacity, and the platform is the thing that's going to unlock it. So look first, say, where's there excess capacity, and now what's my platform that I'm going to build to bring these two together. So in Bogota, Colombia, Sunday mornings, no one's driving around Sunday mornings. So they closed 130 kilometers, 70 miles of roads in Bogota from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. They closed them to cars, and they opened them to everything else. And I want to say that's a platform. That's a platform for community participation. They have 1.3 million people who come every Sunday and do this huge range of things. They have crazy classes. They have health things. They have farmers markets. They have all this stuff. And it's become this incredible, for Bogota, it's why their city is so cool, why everyone loves their city, because they have this going on. So I'm really excited about what you guys can do. When we think of the massively online coursework, I mean, that's these elements that's non-local, as in not in a specific space. But I think there's a huge, those have just started, and how to get a really nice mix between the global big platform and maximizing the local, customized, specialized uniqueness. And that's where I think all the students' cleverness and the staff's cleverness is going to be how to optimize that each side is doing what it does best. And I think that's what you need to be looking at, is thinking where's the excess capacity and which side is doing what it does best. And that's where the platform should come. And so at the end, this is around power to the people. Thank you. I think that's all I have to say. Do you guys have questions?